Welcome back. Well, yesterday we had that story that the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, that's the NNPCL, and the Natural Oil Field Services Limited have commenced oil production at Oil Mining Lease 13 in Akwa Ibom State. We're expecting eventually 6,000 barrels per day. It's been going on from May the 6th, but I think eventually it's supposed to be ramped up to 40,000 barrels per day. Does this give us hope, especially now we are discussing refineries from different parts of the country, the private one, Dangote, the government one, Kaduna, and in Port Harcourt? Let's have the general manager of refineries with Aradel Holdings PLC, Mr. Temitayo Ogunbanjo, joins us virtually. Mr. Ogunbanjo, good morning and thank you for your time.
Yeah.
So when we hear stories like this, for people who are not in the oil and gas space, kind of vague, does it make any difference, really?
Yes, it does. First and foremost, for every Nigerian, I'm sure we all know that oil and gas sector provides, over 80% of the foreign earnings into the country. And we've steadily seen the decline in that production from that sector over the years due to, of course, the debt of investments in that sector to grow our new production, increase our reserves, and all of that. So it's affected the nation, over time. So when we then see new production coming up, it is something to be happy about because, of course, it provides more earnings for the country, which in essence also funnels to, finance other things that the government is doing. So yes, it is a cause for optimism. Yes.
Yeah, but it provides more earnings if it can fight the challenge of oil theft, because we've been fighting oil theft like forever. And we don't see our production has been 1.2. We hardly hit 1.5 or 1.6. We've not been hitting our quota. So, isn't this just another avenue for the oil thieves?
So, you have a point. Our OPEC target last year was 1.7 million barrels, which we didn't meet, which caused OPEC to reduce it to 1.3 for this year. And even that 1.3, the figures for last month shows that we were below that. And yes, a large part of this is with regards to the theft of the oils in the creeks of the Niger Delta. That said, though, there's a lot of focus and concerted efforts being made to plug those holes. The theft from the pipelines systems have been put in place. As I'm sure you know, surveillance and contracts and all of those things. So there is also a collaborative effort being done with security agencies within that region, just to try to plug those holes. I can't say that it has been fully effective, but to a reasonable extent, it has been effective to tide the gaps. With increased production, does that mean you will then see increased theft and sabotage? Well, we need to wait to be able to see that. But there is the pressure on the country to be able to grow its oil and gas production.
Because when Nigerians hear that we were waiting for refineries to start working, and now it seems refineries are coming on board. But where is the crude? We hear Dangote importing crude, WTI from the United States. Perhaps it's a business decision for him. But when we also hear that Nigeria has cases of debts for resources, where we're using our crude. So crude that has not even been extracted are going to be extracted just to be used to pay off debt. Then we wonder, are we going to get to a situation where we're now importing crude because we now have working refineries?
Good question, Annie. And I think you actually touched on it in the point you make. The fact of the matter is quite a large portion of the crude production is pledged. Investments that were made also have covenants tied to it, debt covenants, and a lot of this is committed basis, to the finance providers. So you will see that happen. That we do have these debts to be able to pay. A lot of the revenues from that crude production is tied to that. But like you rightfully said as well, we've actually seen the local refining space open up significantly, with the modular refineries like ourselves operating, and now Dangote as well coming into the fold. Dangote is still at about half the capacity, and hopefully by the end of the year, it should ramp up significantly. These volumes are significant for a country like ours. And part of what the regulators are doing together with ourselves is to try to see how to make this crude available. Yes, there is the challenge because some of this is pledged, like I said, but there is work that is ongoing and this focused work to try to make this crude available. So in the immediate short term, yes, you may hear things like Dangote having to bring in a cargo, two cargoes from offshore. But there, I can tell you that there is work that is ongoing to try to ensure that the cargoes are made available not just to Dangote but to all the local refineries in Nigeria.
Yeah, so one time the conversation around modular refineries was that it's not economically viable, for a country like Nigeria. But I see now that there's been a lot of conversation between modular refinery owners like yourself and the government. Tell us what's the position at this time.
Yeah, so it's a misnomer, and I think people are not well informed when they make comments like that. Yes, a modular refinery is small in scale. We're 11,000 barrels per day. If you compare us to a Dangote whose capacity is 650,000, barrels per day, I mean, we're not the same scale. That said, though, we fulfill a market need. Right? I mean, a year ago, 2 years ago, you had almost 90-something%, and I think well over 90% of the products that are consumed locally in Nigeria being imported. The large part of it being petrol, which was 100% being imported. You had diesel, you had all other sorts of products. But with the advent of the refineries now, you start to see a substitution, as it were, and you start to see us adding value to the resource that we have, the crude, to be able to meet this need. The need remains, whether it's met locally or it's met by imports, then becomes, a focused decisions by the industry and by government. So it is what we're seeing is, concerted effort by the industry as well as the regulators and government to ensure that we add value to our crude production to be able to meet this need that is already there. People need petrol. People need diesel. This is what drives economic, activities. What drives the economy as a whole. There is a need for energy security as well in the country, and if you're beholden to imports, then you're open to, the vagaries of demand supply. You're open to the vagaries of price volatility. All of those things, which you have greater control over if you are the one providing that production locally. So yes, the conversation, encompasses not just the conventional refineries, but the modular refineries. And there are quite a lot. Like I said, there are a number of us that have started production, but there are even a greater number that are still under development that hopefully within the next year or two, you will also see them come.
Just before we let you go, I know you have an association of refiners. What's your level of production now?
Current production of those who are producing, we are about 35 to 40,000 barrels. By the time the other players come into play, I think cumulatively we should be as much as 100,000 barrels per day.
And I guess you focus on PMS, which is the most needed at this point, or you diversify?
Not quite actually.
Okay, all right.
A lot of the production that comes from the refinery is your gas oil, HGO, kerosene, marine diesel, heavy fuel oil, things like that. But we are working on our PMS unit. We'll probably be the first modular refinery to start to make PMS before the start of this end of this year. And we expect other parties to come on board as well.
All right. Well, we need petrol. A lot of the vehicles on Nigerian roads are petrol run, at least for now. Thank you so much. General Manager, Refineries with Aradel Holdings PLC, Mr. Temitayo Gubanjo.
Thank you.